Hi everyone, and thanks for joining. In this session, we're going to be looking at some basic DAX formulas. These are just formulas that we're going to use to do some really basic calculations within Power BI. If you are familiar with your standard equations or formulas you would use in Excel, you'll be glad to hear they're not terribly different in Power BI for the most part. There is some more detailed things you can do in Power BI, but regardless, let's take a look at some ones to get you started, some basics. I'm gonna correlate how they're similar to Excel and some specific peculiarities to pay attention to when you're modifying your dashboard. For those of you who watched my other video on building a dashboard where I leverage COVID data, I'm going to be leveraging the exact same dashboard. So if you worked on this in the past, you can leverage that same thing and follow along with me. I'll also be putting the link to get the source data if you wanted to follow along and do this fresh from the start. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in. So we have my dashboard here, and what I'm going to do is jump immediately to the data panel. So you see here, data, I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to modify some of my data in my country table, or add to it rather. So here I have each unique row is a different country, and what I'm looking to do is do some math or bring in some additional information into this table. Now, the first thing I want to do with COVID, I have my countries. I would like to consolidate some information. I want to know which countries allow which vaccine. So if we were in Excel, think of it as two separate tables. You know, we have a country table, we have a separate table that's saying which countries allow what vaccines. What you would do is you would probably just do a quick vlookup. In Power BI, they have a very similar function, and it's lookup value, okay? And so that's what we're going to do here. So how I like to start is I'll right click any header here, and I will click on new column. Okay. And this is where we're going to input our formula. So the first thing you're going to do is give a header to your column. I'm going to call this allowed vaccines. Okay. So again, everything on the left is just the name. So example, when we finish this column, it'll be changed from column to allowed vaccines. And now we're going to do our lookup value function in the same way you would do it on Excel for a VLOOKUP. So what we're going to do is type lookup and lookup value. And as you can see, it starts pre-populating the name. You can either continue typing it out, you can click on it, or as I like to do, just as quick as my hands are on the keyboard, is press tab. So it completes the first portion of the formula, and now it's asking for input. So the first is a result column name. This is the information I'm looking for. So in this case, I'm going to start typing vaccines. And in the type of vaccine and source table, I have a column vaccine. So this tells me by country what vaccine is allowed. And so it's already highlighted. I can either click it, or again, I can just hit tab, and it applies the information into my formula. Now, just like a VLOOKUP, you're going to hit comma to set the next value in the formula. So now it's saying the search column name. And what this is doing is it's going to match the rows that are important to get this unique information. So in our case, we're going by location. So we need the location from one table and the location from the other. This can either be through the country name here or the ISO code, which is also a unique value for each country name. So what we're going to do is use the location. So I'm just going to start typing location. And right away, it knows that the fields that I'm interested in are in this specific table, country data location, or type of vaccine and source location. Now, when you're doing the lookup value, the first important value is getting the field from the file that has the information you're looking for. So Again, the first thing we looked at is vaccines. So now, what data in that table are we going to match to our country table? And that's going to be the location of type of vaccine and source location. So I can click on that and it populates. Now, the next thing is the search value is in what data in my original table am I matching that location to? And again, in this table, it's convenient. It's already called location. So country data, the table, the column location. Press tab to complete that. Close the bracket. Hit enter. And now we have the allowed vaccines. Just for clarity's sake, if you were to click on this table, you can see we have location and we have vaccines that we pulled the information. So like I said, in Excel, you do vlookup. In Power BI, lookup value. Very, very similar. If you're familiar with Excel, this should be very easy for you to understand. Next, we're going to do a basic sum. I want to know how many tests, how many COVID tests have we done in each country. I have a table already in my data set for COVID testing. And if I enter a source that has information, so here I have, let's say in any given day for this specific country, how many tests were done, daily change in cumulative total, okay? So now if I go to country data, I want the sum of all of the tests by country. So what we're gonna do, again, right click the header, hit new column. We're gonna create a new column to get this sum. So I'm gonna call this number of tests. Again, the left side is just the name of the column. The right side is the formula where all the magic happens, okay? So if you're familiar with Excel, you might just think it's as easy as, let me type in sum, which almost is, but let's go through this. So you type in sum, and we're gonna look at that column we saw before, which was daily change. And if you scroll down a bit, COVID testing on the left is the table. Daily change in cumulative total is the column name within that table. I just hit the down arrow keys. I went down 4 spaces, and now I'm gonna hit tab. Again, you can type it to completion yourself. It's just a lot faster to click it, or down arrow tab, or just tab if it's already on it. It's a lot faster, saves you a lot of time, and then you don't really have to memorize exactly what it's called. Okay, so here I've got the number of tests. I did sum, and I have the table that I'm pointing to as well as the column name, and I'm going to hit enter. Okay, and now what you're going to see is a bunch of values that are all the exact same. Okay, we know that every country is going to have different testing abilities, whether it's how many tests they have, how large their population is, people who are eager to get the test. That could vary from country to country. It's literally impossible that all countries are the exact same testing total since the beginning of COVID. So actually the sum, what it's doing is actually taking the sum of the entire table. So regardless of country name, it's just doing the sum, okay? And so in this case, you cannot do just a basic sum because it's going to take the entire table when you're pointing to a different location. However, Power BI has a feature that does help with this. It's another very simple formula you can add, and that one is called calculate. And what calculate does is it looks at the connection between the two tables. It looks at the rows of the table that we're looking at now. So the country table, the rows, the countries, and it's going to do that filtering itself for us, okay? So all you have to do in this scenario is add calculate on the left, open the bracket, at the end, close the bracket. Calculate does have some more advanced things you can do, especially for measures, where you can even add on additional filters. Maybe you're looking at specifically North America, you can do comma, continent equals North America, that kind of thing. But, we're keeping it simple today. We're just putting in calculate to help us limit the data, recognize that we're just looking for the country, not the entire data sheet, and get that value. So we've completed that. We've added calculate. We're going to hit enter. And as you can see, we have all of the number of tests by country. If ever there's a unique value, it's probably that country is not reporting any data. And what I suggest to you for your data sets, if ever you look at your data, you get concerned by your calculations, always go into the data and do it manually yourself, at least for one, just to make sure the math works. This is a good way to ensure, or a good habit to introduce into your data analytics to ensure that your dashboards are calculating things correctly, okay? So here we have our data, the numbers look good. Now I'm just gonna continue down this path showing you that, the mathematics, the formulas, the expressions from Power BI to Excel are very similar. So now we have our number of tests in our table. We also, as a pre-populated column in our table, is population. I want to know the ratio of tests to our population. Okay, so I'm comparing now data in this table, number of tests, which we brought in, through our Mathemagic, and then I have the population on the left side, which is already in the table. So I'm just comparing all data in one table. I'm not pointing to other locations anymore. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, again, right click, new column. Okay, and here we're going to call it test per pop. Okay, now I say we need to add the calculation portion of our formula before, because I was pulling from our table and I needed it to understand that I'm trying to compare the rows of country. Now that I'm within the same table, I don't need to do that anymore. It understands that I'm just comparing row to row, column to column, okay? So, as you would guess, just like we did some before, there is a divide function. So you can hit divide, open the bracket, and what's great about Power BI as well as Excel, it guides you to what you need to do, okay? So it's saying, give me your numerator, give me your denominator. If it's in square brackets, it's an optional item, okay? So that just means, hey, if you divide and you get an error, what do you want that result to be? Do you want text or whatever? So it doesn't really bother me to have that right now. So I'm just gonna do the numerator, denominator, close it, and let the math happen, okay? So the numerator, we said tests over population. So our numerator is gonna be tests. So I'm just gonna type in tests. And as you see, the second item, country, data, number of tests. I'm gonna hit the tab key and it's in there. Denominator, I'm gonna use the population. Like I said, you see it on the left of the screen. I'm gonna type in pop, country, data, population. First item that appears, hit tab, okay? Like I said, we're not gonna put an alternate result. I'm gonna close the bracket and type enter. There you go. I now have my ratio for test the population. Of course, this does not mean, let's say for the first item, that 25.6% of the population received a test. You could have members of the population that have received multiple tests, in which case that is not what that means, okay? So anyway, just, always be aware of what data you're leveraging, understand the data before you output any assessments or visuals. Just make sure you know what you're showing before you show it, okay? And then like I showed you in the last review, having this massive decimal is not the prettiest thing to look at. It is a percentage. We can just do a percent symbol here and, there you go. Okay. So that was really quick today, just some simple basics. What I always recommend is build your dashboards and learn as you go. As always, if you have additional questions or you're trying to understand how to do something, feel free to reach out to me and I'll do my best to help you as much as I can. All right, guys, take care and I'll talk to you in the next one.